Linked by Gordon Korman. Chapter 1. Michael Amorosa. My mother says I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached to my body. Too bad my phone isn't also attached somewhere. I left it at school again. I know this because it butt dialed our landline at home. I have no idea why. Ever since I dropped it in the toilet, it's been glitchy. When I pick up, I hear a muffled motor in the background. I'm hoping that means the phone is in my locker and the noise is Mr. Kennedy, the custodian, using the big floor polishing machine. Then the sound dies abruptly. That either means Mr. Kennedy finished polishing or my phone died. It's super old, so a battery charge lasts a millionth of a second. I jump on my bike. Chokecherry is a pretty small town, but we live on the opposite side, so it's a long ride. I'm used to it, though. I always leave something at school, and 9 times out of 10, I have to go back and get it. Mom and Dad would give me a lift, but then they'd know. I'm going out, is all the detail I provide. Thanks to the new security, every single door to the school is locked. But I still go from entrance to entrance, banging and yelling, hoping that Mr. Kennedy is close enough to one of them to hear me over the roar of the polisher. To my surprise, the door to the boys' locker room swings open when I kick it. I'm in. I'm entering the school from the back corner that leads out to the football field, but my locker is in the main hall, not far from the principal's office. The floor polisher sounds far away, maybe upstairs. I open my locker, and there it is, the world's oldest phone. I probably shouldn't have called it 11 times, because it's sitting on a tray of poster paints, and all that vibrating has made the blue and yellow leak out together, raining green blobs down on my geography textbook. I'm president of the art club, so I've always got supplies in my locker, and stains on my gym clothes, books, etc. Last year, I got charged a $50 cleaning fee to remove the melted pastel from my iPad screen. Like it's my fault the temperature went up to 100 the weekend before the last day of school. I checked the phone. Dead. Just like I suspected. I shut my locker and turn to leave. Only I don't leave. I freeze. I blink and blink again, struggling to wrap my mind around what I'm seeing. It's spray painted in red on the blank expanse of wall above the staircase leading to the second story. That large X with each arm continued at a right angle. I stare at it in horror and disbelief, hoping that my eyes are deceiving me and this ugly red symbol is something other than what I know it is. A swastika. Michael? Mr. Kennedy's voice startles me out of my state of shock. I drop my phone, which bounces on the floor. It's probably cracked, possibly ruined, but I can't tear my gaze away from the symbol on the wall. What did you forget this time? The custodian asks in exasperation. All I can do is point up. When Mr. Kennedy sees it, a sharp gasp is torn from him. He turns to me. You didn't, he begins. I mean, you wouldn't. Of course not, I answered. Why would the only Dominican kid in the whole school be the one to draw a racist symbol? I almost add nobody would, but there's the evidence right in front of us. Somebody did. I reach down to pick up my phone and almost drop it again. The screen is fractured, but even through the spiderweb of damage, I can see that awful thing on the wall reflected in the glass. The custodian takes out his own phone. I'm calling the police. Chapter 2. Lincoln Rally. Let's get one thing straight. None of this would have happened if it wasn't for dinosaur poop. I'm not making excuses for myself or anybody else, but way back in the Jurassic period, some stegosaurus went to the bathroom in our mountains. And 100 million years later, Jordy Duros, Clayton Pouncey, and I are teetering across a darkened parking lot, struggling under the weight of an 80-pound bag. Are you sure this is the right stuff? I pant as the bag passes under the glow of the street lamp. It says peat moss mix, not fertilizer. What if it doesn't stink? Pouncey worries. Trust me, when we open the bag, we'll have more stink than we know what to do with, Jordy assures us. My mom topped the cedar hedge with this stuff 3 weeks ago. I'm still sleeping with my windows closed. It's a cool night, but carrying the heavy sack has us grunting and sweating like pigs. The girls are waiting for us in front of the office. What took you so long? Sophie Tavener complains. We're freezing here. Try carrying this, I groan. It'll warm you right up. The sign on the door reads, Wexford Smythe University, Department of Paleontology. Why does the snooty college in Massachusetts have an office more than 2,000 miles away in Chokecherry, Colorado? That's where the dinosaur poop comes in. This is where they found it, all neatly fossilized. It looks like a rock, but don't you believe it. First they found the poop, then they found the footprint in the poop. Dinosaurs weren't too picky where they stepped, so the college sent a crew to investigate, and when the first bone fragments popped up, that was it. They say the scientists will be here for years. A few of their kids even go to our school. The digging is happening in the mountains, but the university opened up this little office in town so the PhDs can have a home base and also rub it in our faces how much smarter they are than us locals. The prank is my idea, inspired by a comment made from Pouncy. Basically, if you get your jollies crawling on your hands and knees digging up fossilized poop, then you'll really love an office full of the real thing, smell included. Who brought the funnel? Pouncy asked the girls. I did. Pamela Bynes holds up one of those plastic cooking funnels. The opening is maybe 1/8 of an inch. Oh, Pam, Jordy explodes. There's no way we can get 80 pounds of fertilizer through that thing. Even in the gloom, I can see her face flame red. You just said funnel. You didn't say big funnel. It's fine, I interrupt. Once Pamela and Jordy start flirt fighting, it can go on for hours. They've been like that since we were all 7. True love, I guess. It's usually pretty entertaining, but not when you're carrying an 80-pound load. Shifting the weight of the bag to my left hand, I tear a 4-inch hole in the corner with my right. Instantly, the overpowering smell of manure reaches all our nostrils. Pamela wrinkles her nose. That stinks. It's poop, Pam, not roses, Jordy snaps at her. Sophie holds open the mail slot, and we insert our makeshift spout. Then we hold the bag high, tilt it, and begin shaking it until we feel the fertilizer starting to pour out. Pamela produces a 3x5 card that reads, Dinosaur poop, and stuffs it in through the slot. Just in case they don't get the joke, she supplies. They're scientists, Jordy says impatiently. They're smart. They'll get it. They just might not appreciate it, I add with as much of a grin as I can manage under the circumstances. They're not so smart, Pouncy scoffs. What's a diploma? A fancy piece of paper. That's what my dad says. He talks about his father a lot, which is weird since the two of them can barely stand each other. I brought this. Sophie reaches into her jacket pocket and produces the wishbone from a medium-sized chicken. Wexford Smythe didn't get really excited until they found bones. She stuffs the fossil in through the mail slot. That makes us all laugh, even Pouncy, who isn't known for his sense of humor. Since our eyes are adjusted to the darkness, when the car turns into the parking lot, the headlights are blinding. We pull the fertilizer bag out of the door, but there's no hiding it. We're caught in the act, lit up like performers on a stage. Jordy bellows, Run! No! I gasp. I'm too late. They all take off, leaving me literally holding the bag. Maybe 10 or 15 pounds went in through the slot. The rest of it collapses on top of me. My head strikes the pavement, and I see a few stars that are not necessarily in the sky. I hear a car door and running feet. By the time I manage to roll out from under the sack and make it up to my knees, a man is gazing down at me in concern. You okay, kid? What stinks? I try to say I'm fine, but the wind has been knocked out of me by at least 65 pounds of fertilizer. I told you the dry cleaner was closed, calls a woman's voice from the car. She pauses. Hey, isn't that George Rowley's boy? Busted. The problem with living in a one-horse town like Chokecherry is you can't get away with anything. Especially when your dad is George Rowley, owner of Chokecherry Real Estate, the largest and the only real estate agency in Chokecherry and Greater Shadbush County. He loves this town, more I think than he loves his troublemaking son, which is why I became the mastermind behind Operation Dino Doo-Doo. Even though 5 of us pulled the prank at the strip mall, I was the one who didn't have the luxury of taking off. Not after that lady recognized me. Everybody around here knows my father. He's kind of like the stealth mayor, although Mayor Radisson has nothing to worry about. Dad doesn't have time for local politics. He's too busy being Chokecherry's #1 cheerleader because, as he puts it, the town's success brings success to all of us. No wonder he's ticked off at me. Not only did I make fun of the town's pride and joy, but I was also a failure at doing it. Story of my life. "How do you think it feels, Link?" Dad demands once he has me in the SUV. "When I get a call from one of my own clients to tell me my son has been caught vandalizing an office." "Everybody around here is your client," I point out. "So if you want the call to be from a stranger, I'll have to take the bus to Shadbush Crossing and mess up there." "Link," my mother warns me from the shotgun seat. I call her the referee. "You're the one who's in the wrong. What were you thinking?" "He obviously wasn't thinking," my father puts in, "or none of us would be here right now." "I guess we thought it would be funny," I offer lamely. It's the truth. There are no bigger jokers in Chokecherry than Jordy Pouncey and me, with the girls as backup. To be honest, considering the time we spend pranking and goofing, we don't spend that much time laughing. Getting caught doesn't help, I guess. That's okay. For me, the real goal is getting the attention of people like Dad. Mission accomplished, although maybe not the way I'd planned. Thinking of the others, I quickly amend my answer to, "I thought it would be funny." I'm no snitch, even though my friends ran out on me. Mom shoots me an exasperated look over her shoulder. "Don't even bother. We aren't stupid, you know. One kid can't drag an 80-pound bag of fertilizer halfway across town." "Who was with you?" I don't answer, and Dad doesn't push it. Trust me, he isn't being cool or respecting the code of the schoolyard. He really truly doesn't care who else is involved. All he's worried about is how this looks. Optics. It's his favorite word, after Chokecherry. Leave it to our town to be named after a wild berry sour enough to change your outlook on life, with a pit the size of a cannonball. Dad wheels us on to Blossom Avenue. "I'm not as out of touch as you think I am. I was a kid once, too. I know sometimes you have to cut loose, but why the office, huh? The one group that's working to put Chokecherry on the map." That's the real reason Dad's so steamed about this. His main ambition in life is to turn our dumpy little mountain town into an A-list tourist destination. How's it going to happen? In a word, dinosaurs. If the Wexford Smythe paleontologists are right, and our little dig turns into a major find, Dad wants to reinvent Chokecherry as the dinosaur capital of North America. First, a museum full of towering skeletons surrounding a special glass case displaying the poop that started it all. Next, a theme park. Dino Disney or Six Flags Dino Land. Then hotels, restaurants, ski resorts, golf courses. Our town is destined for greatness, and the real estate in it is destined for greatness too. Guess who bought up most of it? And if Dino Land turns out to be a bust, guess who owns 13,000 acres of nothing? Chokecherry's already on the map, I say. Why do we need scientists to make us important? I go to school with their kids, and they're all snobs and dweebs. Who ever heard of their stupid university anyway? "You know what Orlando, Florida was until Disney found it?" my father persists. "A swamp. Look at it now. Chokecherry could be the next Orlando." "Too much traffic," Mom puts in. Dad ignores her. "You have to think big picture, Link. The future of the town is the future of this family, and the future of this family is your future." I tune him out. If there's a word Dad likes almost as much as optics, it's future. In his mind, my entire life is this gigantic chess match where every tiny move I make in the 7th grade has to be perfectly designed to bring about some glorious endgame decades later. When Jordy Pouncey and I spread lard across the 4th of July parade route, we were just trying to wipe out the marching band. How were we supposed to know that semi was going to skid into a telephone pole? And when Dad banned me from all school sports teams as punishment, it wasn't for plunging the whole town into darkness for 3 days. It was, To protect your future. There was no point in describing to him how awesome it was going to be to watch the musicians floundering all over the intersection. My father has the sense of humor of a loaf of bread. There was even less point in explaining that taking me out of sports would be like pulling him off the Chokecherry Chamber of Commerce. I mean, I'm a pretty popular kid, but if you ask people around here about Link Rowley, the main answer you get will be athlete. Dad thinks if he just keeps slamming me with punishment after punishment, I'll wise up. The truth is, I've wised up already. To him. Mom sighs her peacemaker sigh. Let's not fight. The sooner we can get this bag of fertilizer out to the shed, the sooner we can hose out the trunk. Dad grunts his assent and speeds up a little. We're stopped at a light when his phone rings. When he answers, we hear a lot of animated yelling on the other end of the line. Suddenly, he stomps on the gas, and we blow the red light, screech through an illegal U-turn, and then blow the light in the opposite direction as we roar off down the road. George! Mom hangs on to the dashboard for dear life. Where are you going? That was Principal Bredemus, he replies grimly, leaning on the gas pedal. There's trouble at the school. Chapter 3. Dana Levinson. The kids around here don't think I see them staring at me, but I do. As I make my way up the front walk to Chokecherry Middle School, heads turn in my direction and animated conversations break out. I'm used to being the new kid. Dad's work for Wexford Smythe University has brought us to dinosaur digs all over the world. But Chokecherry is different. It isn't so much that it's small, it's isolated. The nearest big city, Denver, is a 4-hour drive. Even Shadbush Crossing, the county seat, is almost 100 miles away. So the kids in Chokecherry all grew up together, like from the cradle. Where does that leave me? Out in the cold. By the time I show up in the middle of 6th grade, all the friend groups have been set for years. I sort of understand, I don't even mind that much, but I've lived here for 6 months already. Isn't it time I stopped being such a curiosity? They don't have to love me, I just wish they'd stop looking at me like I was a 3-legged coyote that limped in from the mountains. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but it feels like it's even worse today. As I enter the building, they're gathered in small groups, peering at me and whispering. What's going on? The main atrium is more crowded than usual. Mr. Bredemus, the principal, is urging everyone to move on to their lockers, but nobody's budging. They're all gazing up at a gigantic beige tarp that's been duct taped to the wall. 2 custodians are perched on the stairs, working furiously behind the billowing sheets with long-handled mops. Red-stained water's trickling down and puddling on the floor. I blurt, "Is that blood?" Andrew Yee, an 8th grader whose mother works with Dad at the dinosaur dig, takes my arm and starts leading me out of the atrium. Come on, Dana. Nothing to see here. I shake him off. Are they putting up a mural? Nah, he replies, they're just cleaning. At that moment, the duct tape separates from the plaster, and the tarp peels away and drops to the floor. I stare at the wall that's now revealed. I gawk. I goggle. The lines have been blurred by the custodian's mops, but it's very clear what someone has painted up there. As I gaze in shock at the swastika in the atrium, it occurs to me that I've never seen one firsthand before. Oh, sure, in World War II movies and in books about the Nazis and the Holocaust, but not in my school, in a spot where 600 kids walk under every day. It's uglier up there than it looks on a page or a screen because it's not a picture or a prop. It's not there to help tell a story or to educate. It's the real thing, painted in anger and hatred. Hundreds of phones appear, and the air fills with the whirring and snapping of pictures. I'm rooted to the spot. Now I understand what all the watching and whispering was about. A swastika is a symbol of hate in general, but it's especially a symbol of anti-Semitism. And everybody knows that I'm the only Jewish kid at Chokecherry Middle School. I've never seen Mr. Bredemus move quite so fast as he does, getting over to the fallen tarp and handing it up to the custodians on the stairs. While they try to stick it back on the wall, the principal orders us to our homerooms. Nobody moves. What we've just seen is awful, but for some reason, we can't turn our backs on it. Put those phones away, Mr. Bredemus orders, sounding a lot like a Marine drill sergeant barking commands at new recruits. Clear the atrium. At that point, the bell rings, and we all begin to shuffle off to lockers and homerooms. Behind us, the tarp hits the floor again, and I catch one more glimpse of it as I round the corner. You okay? Andrew asks anxiously. Why wouldn't I be? I snap. And I am okay, I tell myself. Why should I get upset just because some wingnut put a swastika on the wall? I've been alive for 13 years. It's not like this is the only bad thing I've ever seen. And this isn't Nazi Germany just because somebody painted a Nazi symbol. I scan the faces in the hall. Most kids are talking a mile a minute about what we've just witnessed. One thing about a small town like Chokecherry, nothing ever happens. So when it does, it's big news. A few people look kind of solemn and tight-lipped, but most have their phones out and are comparing swastika pictures. A few have even taken selfies with the awful thing in the background. Probably by the end of homeroom, Instagram will be flooded with the postings. Me with swastika, cute. Not cute. Actually, deeply disturbing. Okay, maybe I'm a little more rattled than I'm willing to admit, because that swastika means there could be someone in this school who hates me, not dislikes me or finds me annoying. A swastika sends you directly to the H word. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. I've gotten strange looks in the past. A handful of insensitive, mean comments, but not hate. Nothing like that. The swastika is bad enough, but the thought of some shadowy person actually drawing one is worse. Why would anybody do that? It's probably just a sick joke, but what if there's more to it than that? If this question sends a chill up my spine, it seems to thrill a lot of my classmates. I can't believe that so many of them think this is a fun thing to spice up a boring school week, like the time the bus broke down and they had to call the giant tow truck. Excited speculation buzzes through the halls. Who did it and why? Is there a racist in our school? A neo-Nazi? Is it serious or just somebody trying to pull our chains? Is a student behind it, or did some adult sneak into our school with a can of red spray paint? I heard it was Michael Amorosa, Pamela Bynes is saying not far away from me. Mr. Kennedy caught him in the act. That's crazy, Jordy Duro scoffs. Why would Michael paint a swastika? He didn't, Gordon Lund replies. He's just the guy who found it. He got so freaked out he dropped his phone and it broke. Maybe it was Mr. Kennedy, Pamela suggests. He's always in the school. Mr. Kennedy's worked here forever, Jordy points out. If he was a Nazi, we'd know by now. Notice how I rattle off all their names. I doubt that many people in this school know Andrew and me. We're the scientist kids. I've heard us called egglets, children of the eggheads. It's not an insult, or at least I don't think the locals mean it to be. It's just the way things are around here. It's a reminder that race and religion aren't the only things that can make you an outsider. Andrew stays with me all the way to my homeroom, like I'm made of delicate crystal or something. I always thought he wasn't as sensitive as I am to our outsider status, but I might be wrong about that. Or maybe I look worse than I realize. Don't freak out, he tells me at the doorway to the class. It's going to blow over, I promise. Thanks. But when I walk into Mr. Slobodkin's homeroom, every single eye is laser focused on me. I wonder how Andrew can make a promise like that. If the kids are all staring at me, Mr. Slobodkin is doing the exact opposite. His effort to look anywhere else but in my direction is giving him a crick in the neck. How am I going to survive this homeroom without losing my mind? The answer to that comes via the PA. All classes are to meet in the auditorium in 10 minutes for an important assembly. I have a sneaking suspicion that this doesn't mean a surprise performance by a traveling troupe of jugglers. I always wondered what a sinking heart feels like. Now I know. Our auditorium seats 540. Since there are over 600 kids in the school, the overflow has to sit on folding chairs in the orchestra pit. I'm praying for the last row of the balcony. No such luck. Mr. Slobodkin is the oldest, slowest teacher in the whole school. By the time we get down there, the only open spots are right in front of the stage. I couldn't be more on display. Or at least that's how it feels. In the 6 months since we moved to Chokecherry, I've seen Principal Berdemas furious, elated, stern, excited, and even emotional. But this is a new one. He looks like he's just been dragged backward through a hedge. His face is bright red, his hair is standing on end, and his expression is more stunned than anything else. He surveys the crowd, and maybe it's just me, but his eyes linger on the Jewish girl in the front row. Many of you know that our school was the target of an act of hateful vandalism last night. A white supremacist symbol was painted on the wall of our atrium. Let me stress that we know very little about this incident right now. We don't know who did it, and we don't know what that individual's motive might have been. But I felt it was important for us to get together as a school community and clear the air before the rumors get out of hand. You'd think we're in an empty room. That's how silent it is. People might tell you, the principal goes on, that the swastika on our wall is an ancient symbol, a kind of cross that has had many meanings over the centuries. Don't believe it. Today, the swastika has only one meaning: pure hatred. Most notoriously, it is the symbol of Nazi Germany, an evil regime that killed millions. It screams not just anti-Semitism, but every other kind of racism and intolerance. It is an attack against not just our minority students, but against every single one of us, and it's 100% unacceptable. A smattering of applause greets this. I don't join in. It's like my hands are made of lead. Seated next to me, Eli Vardy offers up a high five that I just stare at. What's that for? I asked him. Isn't this great news for you? He demands. How do you figure that? Read-aloud is anti-swastika, he explains, and you're... I play clueless. From Massachusetts? Our custodians are in the process of removing that repulsive symbol from our atrium, Mr. Read-aloud goes on. We won't have to look at it anymore, but that doesn't mean it will be gone. A swastika may be a painted picture, but it's also an idea that survives, spreading its poison long after the symbol has been erased. But there's an antidote to that poison, and that antidote is information. I'll be speaking with the school board, the teachers, and the parents. We will combat this with a tolerance education project that will involve every student and classroom. Where there's darkness, we will shine light. The principal kind of slumps for a moment, almost like it took everything he had to make it this far. Then he says, I'm sorry that we have to go through this, but I hope we'll be stronger as a community when we come out the other side. And he walks off the stage, shoulders sagged. This time, the teachers applaud and maybe a few kids. Even me, I find my hands at last. But for the most part, the 600 plus are pretty cowed. Not many of the students of Chokecherry Middle School are big Read-aloud fans. But when you see your principal so obviously shaken, it makes you think that maybe you should be more upset than you really are. The next time I pass through the atrium on the way to lunch, the wall has been repainted. You've never seen so many kids staring at a blank wall. The swastika is gone, but it isn't.